you're a fourth generation Pentecostal pastor. I don't have conversations with those people all the time.
Not all the time.
You grew up in the church, and it hasn't always been easy. You haven't always been working in the best of conditions, yet you've overcome a lot. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how'd you get here?
I'm a native of San Francisco. My father was a GI Bill Vietnam veteran. My mom was a teacher. I graduated from Lowell High School and Mills College. My father's side of his family from North Carolina, Goldsboro to be exact. And so after the Vietnam War, he joined my grandmother, who had since relocated to the Oakland, East Oakland to be exact, and was a head nurse at Kaiser Hospital for almost 25, 30 years. So we've had a life that has been characterized deeply by faith. I'd say we're in the family business of fourth generation holiness Pentecostal, which just means we do speak in tongues, roll on the floor, swing from the chandeliers, and on a good Sunday, we levitate, right? We have great, high-spirited encounters with the Almighty, with God, and it fuels and sustains us. It also gives us, I believe, ability to see beyond the current circumstance. It gives us like a sense of vision, almost like an extra kind of set of 3D glasses to see things that perhaps may not always be obvious. But it doesn't keep us from being impacted by the social ills. And so as a youth pastor, I was physically and sexually assaulted by police officers while I was serving at a church in San Jose. So you can kind of go your whole life, in like a super conservative, Bible thumping church in the Bay Area and still find yourself like getting beat up by the cops for no particular reason. And none of those police officers being held accountable, even though there was some admission that their encounter with me was obviously brutal and unnecessary. And so what I have found throughout the course of my life is that you can kind of do everything that you know to do right and still have to deal with trauma that you did not ask for, that you did not expect. And I think that is the fuel for why I try to do this work. It informs my experience, my trauma, my pain, the healing journey I had to go on. It reminds me that without such healing, without such structure and support, I could have had these traumatic experiences turn me into a monster, right? It could have turned me into someone who had lots of anger, fear, and pain that was not interrogated, that was not fully engaged and turned into almost a superpower. And I find that many individuals, particularly in low wealth communities and Black, brown communities, particularly young men, are experiencing trauma at levels that blow our minds. And yet there is no infrastructure in our cities, states, or the country for young men to have their trauma effectively dealt with. And so I try to be a living example of that, but also acknowledge that my faith journey, my family, the systems, institutions, and structures that have held and produced me, it gives me a bit of a superpower, a leg up, a lot of, dare I say, privilege and opportunity to not be defined by the worst thing that happened to me.
Well, obviously you've channeled that in an incredible way. You're involved with a bunch of foundations, right? In addition to being the lead pastor of the Way Church in Berkeley. I want to hear a little bit more about how you do this work through each of these, and I'm going to list them. So you're the executive director of Live for USA, where we